Well, Missouri can kiss the college football playoff goodbye. So where does it go from here? Let's talk about that and more on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I hate to say it, Missouri receivers, for all the hype about the nasty wideouts this offseason, have not lived up to expectations in this season. And frankly, I got a question. What exactly was our game plan yesterday on the offensive side of the ball? Because you had a good Missouri defense that was mostly holding up its end, but the offensive strategy didn't really pair very well. Let's put it that way. But, my main question here today is, and I think obviously all offseason, a topic I hit on a lot was, hey, does Missouri get in the playoff at 10-2? I felt like they would this past offseason. Well, I also felt like Missouri would be competitive against Texas A&M and Alabama, and that has not happened. And at this point, even if Missouri were to somehow win its final 4 games, we can kiss the college football playoff goodbye. There's maybe a 1% chance that happens, even if Missouri were to win out at this point. You simply cannot perform like Missouri has against those teams on the road, and even Missouri's wins have left a lot to be desired, without a doubt. So here's the thing. I can't believe I'm saying this because certainly you have a whole range of outcomes at the beginning of the season. You have the best case scenario, you have the worst case scenario. Well, I predicted 11-1. I was obviously leaning more toward the best case scenario. Well, now absolutely the worst case scenario is very much in play for Missouri. The Tigers could go 6-6 now. You can't tell me there's an obvious win on this schedule now with the way the Missouri offense has performed lately, especially Mississippi State. I get it. They're not very good. Guess who also isn't very good right now? The Missouri Tigers, unfortunately. And it's so bad right now, especially with Brady Cook now with a second injury to his either wrist or hand on his throwing arm that made him leave this Alabama game. Normally, I get irritated with Missouri fans when they do the, woe is Missouri card. Oh, we got Mizzou'd, that whole thing. Well, if you want to play that card right now, I can't even blame you whatsoever. Again, as anticipated of a season as Missouri has ever had, and you're staring the worst case scenario right in the face. Heck, if you choose to check out for the rest of this season, I can't even blame you. And for those people who are comparing this season to 2008, when Missouri didn't quite follow up on the 2007 season, I will say that while that team was disappointing, it still had a great offense. They still ended up winning 10 games with the bowl. This season feels a heck of a lot more like 2019 to me. Another season where I anticipated good things from the Tigers, but a season that ended up ultimately getting Barry Odom fired. The offense was truly that inept. The train had completely left the track offensively. And I hate to say it, I think that's what we're seeing right now for Eli Drinkwitz, Kirby Moore, and this Missouri offense. Again, at Texas A&M, at Alabama, those were the 2 big road games that every single Missouri fan circled on their calendar this season. I can't say that the players necessarily gave up, but I don't think they gave their greatest effort I've ever seen either. But more to the point, I thought Missouri was just wildly outcoached in every conceivable way in those 2 ball games, in terms of preparation, in terms of in-game adjustments, and in terms of just basic strategy. I really don't know what the heck Missouri was doing in either one of these ball games. I came into this game saying, hey, if Missouri has any chance here, it's going to have to be a rock fight. Well, through about 2.5 quarters, Missouri and Alabama had a rock fight on their hands. And yet, somehow, Eli Drinkwitz and his team seem to think that, no, this is just going to be the same usual kind of offensive game that we're normally going to call. And Missouri starts the game with 9 passes and 3 carries to running backs. To me, that is simply malpractice. When you have an offense that is struggling, when you have a quarterback, most importantly, that has had a serious high ankle injury, I mean, how? How do you just continue to rely on your injured quarterback to drop back to pass over and over again when your receivers are struggling to beat man coverage, even at a 3rd and 4 at midfield, basically? Instead of, heck, you could run the ball twice there and probably pick up a first down. Missouri's running game was far from dynamic yesterday, but they still averaged more yards per rushing attempt than they did yards per pass yesterday. But sure, 3rd and 4, let's definitely drop back and put it on Brady Cook's shoulders once again. And overall, defensively, by the way, I'm pretty much willing to write off the second half for the Tigers. I've seen this movie many times. Speaking of 2019, a team that had a good defense, at a certain point, when your defense just realizes, okay, we have to do it all, basically, it just gives out. The dam eventually breaks, and I think that's what we saw. And I'll even write off the second half offensively, too. Obviously, Cook gets hurt. It's the nightmare scenario, but what was the excuse in the first half? Why was it so difficult for Missouri to move the football? Because even though Brady Cook was compromised, well, it wasn't as though he was 100% limited to being only in the pocket. If anything, of course, as usual, Cook probably left the pocket at times when he didn't need to. But overall, I just have to ask, rhetorically, once again, what in the heck has happened to this offense? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I hate to say it. Some of it does come back to the receivers. Of course, Brady Cook, Kirby Moore, they get their big chunk of the blame as well. But as I alluded to a little bit ago, these receivers really struggling to get open, especially against man coverage. I also think our guys are pretty terrible on scramble drills too, by the way. It seems like, hey, well, that first route, if it's not open, then these guys start jogging around and not really looking to help out their quarterback like they should, in my opinion. And for as much as I think as much as I think Luther Burden is a great player, let's just look at the stats yesterday for the entire group. 3 catches for 3 yards for Luther Burden. Marquise Johnson, who has been utterly invisible last year after being one of the most explosive players in the entire country last year, he's been completely and utterly invisible this season. I understand that he's had an ankle injury of his own that he's been fighting through the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, but it's just amazing to me that Missouri and Kirby Moore and Eli Drinkwitz cannot make it a little bit easier on their players to get easy yards. One time, can we scheme somebody open? Can we run a rub route? If these guys are struggling to get out of man coverage, help them out. That's your job as the offensive coordinator, is to get guys open. And too often this season, you're just not seeing it. And by the way, Theo Weiss, who I was a huge fan of last season, just 2 catches for 19 yards in this ball game. And he really did get the blanket in the Texas A&M ball game as well, it would seem. So to me, you can say Luther Burden is getting all of the attention, and maybe he is. Well, that means somebody's got to eat on the other side. It should be Theo Weiss. It certainly wasn't Brett Norfleet. It wasn't Josh Manning, who had 1 catch for 6 yards. Norfleet led the team with 3 catches for 23 yards. Again, the running game was not dynamic, but this passing game right now is totally broken, and I lay most of it at the feet of Kirby Moore and the coaching. What are we doing right now? It's got to be easier than this. So the cold, hard reality is for Mizzou and their fans, this season is not going to live up to expectations. It felt like college football playoff or bust, whether that was fair or not. And now that it seems like, well, bust, what now? Where does Missouri turn from here? What does it have to play for? Let's discuss that coming up in just a little bit. First, I want to tell you about PrizePicks, where you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive this $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. And I got to say, I love PrizePicks because you're not locked into a format of lineups or anything like else. You don't have to play against another human. Just combine your takes. Have at least 2 takes, put them together, and you know what? Hopefully the money will then start rolling in. Regardless, here's what you got to do. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So I'm sure this coming week, Eli Drinkwitz is going to say all the right things about the rest of this season, his team's motivations, all that good stuff. I'm sure he'll say that, hey, we're playing for each other. We're playing for the man next to us in the locker room and all that good stuff. But I think the reality is Eli Drinkwitz can say all of that, but he's shown with his actions during his time at Missouri that there's been one bowl game, I should say, at Missouri that Eli Drinkwitz actually cared about, and it was last season's Cotton Bowl. Of course, Missouri skipped a bowl game during the COVID pandemic. Well, obviously those were extreme circumstances, but then the next season, Missouri obviously ended up starting Brady Cook at quarterback, ruling out a lot of other guys with injury as well. The Wake Forest bowl game, the Gasparilla Bowl, Missouri seemed fairly uninterested there as well. So you do have to wonder, how motivated is this team going to be? Speaking of the Cotton Bowl, of course, great wide receiver, top 5 pick of last year's draft, Marvin Harrison Jr., chose to sit out that game to preserve his body, preserve his NFL draft stock, all of that good stuff. Well, one thing I've definitely wondered with the 12-team playoff, the continuing emphasis on the playoff since it was created, about a decade ago now, and when it was just 4 teams, it seems like the emphasis grows with each and every season. And with that, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the de-emphasis on all the other bowl games. So to all of the people who say there has been a lot of questions about the 12-team playoff, whether this was great for the sport or not, and a lot of people who point to the television ratings this season will take a victory lap already and say, aha, see, the 12-team playoff has been great. And it keeps a lot of teams who maybe normally would have been out of it in terms of the national picture, well, they're still in it. Well, to me, that is true, no doubt about it, but I do think there's something really lost there. If you watched College Game Day yesterday, of course, that was in Bloomington, Indiana, and their former coach, Lee Corso, rocking his Indiana sweatshirt. That was a really fun walk down memory lane with Coach Corso and his 1979 team that won the Holiday Bowl in rather dramatic fashion. It was, a fun ride down memory lane, but what I took from this is not only did that game mean a ton, that victory meant a ton to Corso and those young men at the time. Well, now years later, those much older men, 45 years later, it still means the world. This is a seminal moment in these guys' lives. And it wasn't in the college football playoff. It wasn't in the Orange Bowl. It wasn't in the Cotton Bowl. No, it was only in the Holiday Bowl. And Corso even makes reference to, I'm sure to a lot of people it probably seems a little bit strange that the Holiday Bowl means this much to us, but there was more to play for in college football back in the day than just the national championship. Now, a lot of people say, hey, the 12-team playoff, maybe it's worth it. That's a subjective value argument that we can all have, but I think it's pretty objectively obvious that the wider this grows, well, the less there is to play for outside of the national championship itself. Now, of course, the Missouri offensive line deserves a pretty big share of the blame as well. Really, it's been a team effort in terms of being disappointing so far, I would say. Mitch Walters, once again, like he did in the UMass game, replaced Caden Green pretty early in that ball game at left guard. So obviously, this offensive line and Caden Green in particular has not been going up to has not been performing up to the coaching staff's standards so far. And obviously, Drew Pine, the Missouri backup quarterback, I think the conventional wisdom was obviously, hey, Missouri has at least a solid veteran backup here in Pine. But unfortunately, especially in this ball game, I was willing to give him a little bit of a pass against Auburn. But against Alabama, again, this is every bit as much on the Missouri coaching staff as it is on Pine, because you've got to have him ready to play. You can't be throwing 3 interceptions in 12 passes. It's madness. It really is. I couldn't believe how poorly and unprepared Missouri looked once Brady Cook had to leave that game. It's not as though it was an unknown variable here that, oh, hey, we're probably going to want to get the backup quarterback ready this week, especially when Brady Cook, according to the coaches, was extremely limited. So who was getting those reps? Well, obviously it was Drew Pine, unless, I don't know, maybe some of them were going to J.R. Blood, because I found it a little bit bizarre that Blood, the transfer, also, I don't believe he's on scholarship either, a walk-on who up until yesterday had not played a single snap in his Missouri career. Boy, the ABC broadcast was sure obsessed with bringing his name up like a half dozen times or so. He finally does get in for a quick series, a 3-and-out for Missouri. But I have to say I was a little bit amused by how much the broadcast was talking about J.R. Blood. That was, I don't know, about variable 185 of what I was actually thinking about coming into the Missouri-Alabama game. But for some reason, the ABC production staff was rather fixated on J.R. Blood. And for as poorly as everything went for Missouri offensively, you kind of had the game you wanted if you're the Tigers. A real rock fight. It was 6-0 with about 3 minutes left in the half, and Missouri had the ball, had been controlling field position. Alabama had been in real disadvantages, really in a bad field position dynamic for the entire half. So on third down, Pine just absolutely forced a pass. It was a force on every level. You just can't have that. You got to have a situational awareness of what's happening around you. This is a field position, run the ball and punt kind of game. He would have just simply handed the ball off there on 3rd and long, go punt it, force Alabama to drive 80 yards, which up until that point, it hadn't done yet. Why risk flipping the field position in Alabama's favor? It was just bad strategic thinking by Missouri. The Tigers played the game as if they were having their usual success on offense, like things were clicking. I didn't understand the situational coaching there from Drinkwitz and company. And once again, end of half time management from Eli Drinkwitz continues to be a little bit of a mystery. The Tigers often cannot decide if they want to run out the clock or they want to actually try to pick up a first down or two. Usually they get caught somewhere in no man's land there, as they did at the end of the half. I really thought Missouri could have done made a simple decision there at the end of the half that would have actually helped out Drew Pine, who was obviously struggling at quarterback. Just give him a simple read. Could have actually worked. Give the nasty wideouts a chance. I want to talk about that and some actual positives. Yes, there were a few from this ball game, believe it or not. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. First, though, let's talk FanDuel, where NFL fans can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And Missouri is on a bye week, mercifully, so I don't have any hot Missouri takes right now. You know what? Let's stay off the Chiefs against the Raiders this afternoon. I just don't trust the Chiefs when they're giving too many points this season. Liked them against San Francisco. This seems like this could potentially be a sleepy type of game for Kansas City. But regardless of what you're into, you got to be into it at FanDuel.com. Now, I have to imagine there were a few Missouri fans out there when Brady Cook was on the sidelines in street clothes, and he seemed pretty upbeat and happy, by the way. I bet that rubbed some angry Mizzou fans the wrong way, at least a few of them. But I'll say this, it's something, once again, I really admire about Cook. I admire his positivity and his quiet confidence. That's something that I find rather admirable about Cook. I don't know. The thing is, what's he supposed to do? Sit there and cry on the sidelines? Is that going to be helpful whatsoever? The thing is, I definitely was one of those people who had criticisms of Luther Burden's body language during the Texas A&M game. My whole thing is with Burden, by the way, I don't really mind if he's angry. I don't mind if he expresses frustration. Even if he's yelling at his teammates for a second or two, having a little bit of a confrontation, I can live with that. I just don't like, I don't mind my guys signaling that they're frustrated or upset. I just don't like when they signal that they're giving up. And I thought that was the distinction there that I would like to make. But at this point, body language is pretty far down my list of concerns for Missouri football. But I will say, there had to be some positives from the game yesterday, especially with a really good start by the Missouri defense. The Tiger defense, Corey Batoon, they came to play yesterday. They had a plan, and, well, unfortunately, like I said, the dam eventually broke with 3 interceptions by Drew Pine, among other things. But I did think Nick DeLoach played pretty well, the freshman cornerback, and you know what? The guy who he's been splitting time with a lot lately, Toriano Pride, I thought he had a solid game as well. So the Missouri secondary, I thought, was pretty darn good. And you know what? Drayden Norwood showed some toughness fighting through some type of chest, center body kind of injury there that he was clearly struggling with multiple times during the game. Obviously, Johnny Walker, who people have been wanting to see more production from, couple of beautiful sacks by Walker in the game. Frankly, I was surprised Jalen Milroe was able to hold on to the football in one of those particular cases, but great to see Johnny Walker getting to the quarterback yesterday. Now, unfortunately, that's about it for the positives. There are some more negatives, though, including Eli Drinkwitz's continued love affair with the flea flicker. He realizes there are other trick plays that you can call other than the flea flicker, right? Hey, it worked great against LSU back in 2020. I'm trying to remember the last time it worked very effectively other than that. Maybe I'm forgetting a moment last season. All I know is Eli Drinkwitz, I've never seen a head coach more in love with a flea flicker than that man. But also, here's another thing. I thought Missouri was just simply too conservative at the end of the first half. This is what I teased here at the end. Obviously Drew Pine was struggling here, but Missouri still willing to let him drop back to pass, that's for sure. Well, at one point, as the clock is ticking down, number one, Missouri wasted about 30 seconds here. Again, they're sort of in no man's land on terms of, hey, are we going to try to score? Are we going to try to run out the clock? We're not really sure. We're just going to kind of do neither fish nor fowl here, in my opinion. But at one point, Alabama showed a simple single high safety coverage. So whether that's a man-to-man with a cover 1 man-to-man coverage or it's a cover 3 zone, I think either way there, you just put both of those guys in the boundary, tell them to streak down the field, and look one off, throw it the other way. Whichever way the safety goes, throw it the other way. Just make it a simple read for Pine and throw a jump ball to Theo Weiss and Luther Burden and hope for luck. I'm not even saying that I would be very confident at all that pass would be completed whatsoever. I'm just saying at least give yourself a chance. Heck, you get a chance for a defensive pass interference, maybe get an explosive play. The point is, for as much as Missouri seemed willing to throw up a bunch of contested one-on-one balls later in the second half, where was that at the end of the half? Give it a shot. Then we end up settling for a 59-yard Blake Craig field goal. That poor guy, we just cannot give him a chip shot anymore. But regardless, Eli Drinkwitz and company need to figure out something with time management, especially at the end of the halves there. Also, Christian Williams, a disappointing personal foul, ripping a guy's helmet off. Again, for a fifth, sixth-year type player like Christian Williams, a true veteran there, to make that mistake just shows that the locker room is not, the leadership, not quite up to par of last season, in my humble opinion. And by the way, once again, Missouri under Drinkwitz, under Eric Link, the special teams coach, caught off guard by a short kickoff, a squib type of kickoff. We seem to never know what the heck to do with those and end up taking the ball deep in our own territory here to start off. Just another kind of brain dead special teams moment on kickoffs for Missouri. And well, thanks for joining me here today on Locked On Mizzou. By the way, this was not my favorite episode of all time to record, as you can probably figure out. Wasn't my favorite game to watch yesterday either, but like the game yesterday, this show is now over. That's the most positive thing I could say about it. So thanks for joining me here, as always. And until next time, I am John Miller, and thanks for listening to Locked On Mizzou.